have an escape plan to where once you get out of the house, make sure that you have a meeting place. We speak about matches and lighters and candles. Basically, we just want to prepare them for if something were to happen at home, that they would know what to do and be better prepared and hopefully panic a little bit less.
My name's Sergeant Chris Carpenter. I've been with the City of San Angelo or Police Department for going on 27 years. Back whenever they first created the telecommunicator position, they were classified as secretarial.
All right, we've got them on the way, okay?
There's a push right now going on to reclassify telecommunicators as first responders, because in a lot of instances, they are being the first person that's reacting to that scene.
911, what is your emergency?
My name is Pedro Rodriguez. I've been with the San Angelo Police Department dispatch for a year and a month now. Well, I went to school for criminal justice. Hopefully one day I will become.
And slowly end the conversations that you might be having, and we're going to wait for Billy to come up and sit down and get comfortable, and Lucy get comfortable, Daniel, everybody is almost in place. All right, it is 8:31. We will call this meeting to order, and we will start as usual with our chaplain prayer, followed by our pledges, and I'm going to ask the chaplain, Gary Jenkins, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started, good morning, Mayor. Before I get started, as you know, whenever I do the pledge or Marcella does the pledge, we're together. Today I'm by myself because
Do it then? Pretty strong.
I feel like I'm moving at half steam today.
Okay,
So
well, I'll be the other steam.
Thank you so much. Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we bow before you to say thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace, your mercy, your long suffering, your patience, your divine protection. We thank you for this opportunity to pray before the members of the City Council of San Angelo. We ask you that you endow them with wisdom and knowledge and revelation to do the business of the city in excellence, in a way that will glorify and honor you. We thank you for your word says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And Father, we are not ashamed to admit that you are our God, our Lord, and our Savior. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. Yes, ma'am. Honored.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much.
This morning we only have one proclamation to read, and so I would ask if, Tina, are you going to accept the proclamation this morning, and the rest of the team come forward? Recognition of the Finance Department for earning the CAFR for the 6th consecutive year.
The annual audit report produced by the city's finance department has, for the 6th straight year, earned national accolades. The 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. The award is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. The GFOA said its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. The city's comprehensive annual financial report is the yearly financial audit of the city conducted by external auditors and approved by the City Council. The GFOA lauded the report for the fiscal year that ended September 30th, 2018. In doing so, it said it demonstrates, quote, a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story, end of quote. Our citizens want assurances their city government manages their tax dollars with the utmost efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency. Earning this honor 6 years in a row gives the public a high level of assurance that it is indeed the case. Interested taxpayers are invited and encouraged to go to the city's website to read our award-winning audit report. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the City of San Angelo's Finance Department for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community and its municipal government.
I really just want to take this opportunity to thank our accounting division. They put a lot of hard work and effort into creating this report and into earning this award. And so we've got a great group of folks here. We encourage you to go to our website or review our financial statements, all of our financial documents, and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.
We will now open up for public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. I'm going to start in public comment with the following, announcing Shannon's 5-Star Award. Shannon Medical Center has achieved 5-star status, a prestigious honor given to the most elite hospitals in the nation. The rating is listed on the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, Hospital Compare website. CMS analyzes over 4,500 hospitals nationwide that report data through the Hospital Inpatient Quality Reporting IQR program to distribute a rating system based on multiple areas of service and care. The measurement groups include mortality, safety of care, readmission, patient experience, effectiveness of care, timeliness of care, and efficient use of medical imaging. Shannon rated either average or better than average across the board on all 7 measures. Once all the measures are collected, a hospital summary score is calculated by taking the weighted average of the group score. Out of the total number of hospitals in the United States, only 407 ranked well enough in these categories to receive 5-star status, with 37 of these being in Texas. Shannon Medical Center was one of those 37, ranking in the top 9% of hospitals nationwide. Congratulations to all of our providers and associates, and thank them for their continued focus and hard work at Shannon to help us reach this momentous achievement. We are proud to say we have one of the best hospitals in the country right here in the Concho Valley. We want to thank Shannon Hospital for being a part and reinvesting in the community in San Angelo. When we talk about health care, When we talk about quality of life, they're one and the same. You can't have quality of life if you don't have quality of care. So thank you, Shannon, for working so hard to provide great care. Do I have public comment? Is there anyone here who would like to offer public comment? With no one choosing to offer public comment, we will move into the consent agenda. I'm going to start with Tommy and see if he has anything he wants to pull.
No, ma'am.
Tom?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
D.
D. Lucy?
No, ma'am.
Lane?
No, ma'am.
Billy?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then with that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item D? So moved by Tommy and a second.
Second.
Second by Lane. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of item D, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, consent agenda passes. Item D, consider awarding the purchase of bunker gear to Casco Industries through buy board contract number 524-17 in the amount of $107,644 budgeted for purchase in fiscal year 2020 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Harry?
Yes, I'll wait till Patrick gets to the microphone. I think my only question is, as I read the background information, it says loss of 22 pieces of bunker gear. Patrick and I spoke just before the meeting. I'd like for him to clarify for the citizens watching exactly what that means. Patrick?
Good morning, Council, Madam Mayor, Mr. Valenzuela. Patrick Brody, Fire. Yearly, we replace bunker gear that's going out of date. We only have 10-year service life on it per NFPA standards. And this year, we had about approximately 41 sets we've already purchased. We've already purchased 24, and we need 19 more. And that pushes us over that 50,000 threshold. So we came to council for approval.
Move to approve.
Does council have any other questions or comments on this item, D? With none, then Harry moves for approval. Do I have a second? Second by Billy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor of passing item D in the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are accepted from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. We ask that each person only approach one time and speak only once during public comment on regular agenda items. I'm going to move to item 7A, report from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Presentation will be made by Diana Bays.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, City leaders, and citizens. Let me start by saying it's not easy to keep a secret for 3 months. So that said, many of you have already heard the news I'm planning to share as we announced it on Saturday, which was actually against what we had actually planned. But another city let the cat out of the bag last week, and because of our ranking, we were given the privilege to share early. So for those of you who haven't heard, we'll get started with a quick video for you to watch.
This is fresh off the press. Fantastic. Thank you.
So I want to thank Brian Groves with the City of San Angelo Public Information Office for his hard work on the production of this video, because we had to rush to get this done on Saturday. So he was actually filming the rodeo Saturday morning and then sent the video to me that afternoon. So many of you, or many people have said, how in the world did we get this ranking? So I want to go over the top 10 list one more time. Carson City, Nevada, number 10. Scottsbluff, Gehring, Nebraska, number 9. Tombstone, Arizona, number 8. Sheridan, Wyoming, number 7. Dodge City, Kansas, number 6. Fort Smith, Arkansas, number 5. Prescott, Arizona, number 4. Buffalo, Wyoming, number 3. Deadwood, South Dakota, number 2. And San Angelo, Texas, number 1. Those are good cities to be among. So the top 10 reasons we believe San Angelo was selected as the number 1 true Western town of the year by True West magazine. We are part of the Texas Forts Trail region. The trail covers a 650-mile driving loop with a 29-county region of central West Texas. It highlights a Spanish presidio and 8 historic frontier forts and the communities and attractions that surround them. Included in the region is San Angelo. Fort Concho National Historic Landmark, number 2. Established in 1867 along the banks of the Concho River, Fort Concho continues to tell the story of the former Army post and those who served there, including the 4th and 10th Cavalry and all 4 regiments of the Buffalo Soldiers. The fort hosts events including Christmas at Old Fort Concho, the Regional Cavalry Competition, the American Plains Art Show, and the upcoming Cowboy Way Jubilee, to name a few. And it was named Best Preserved Historic Fort in the U.S. by True West last month. Historic Concho Avenue. Miss Hattie's Bordello Museum, we won't go there, but you know. The Cactus Bookshop, featuring the works of Western author Elmer Kelton, who was a San Angelo resident. The shop was recently named Best Western History Bookstore in January by True West. Preserved buildings housing retail stores and restaurants throughout our downtown. The sheep statues of San Angelo, showcasing our history as a wool marketing center. Old Central Firehouse Bed and Brew was named Best Heritage Bed and Breakfast by True West last month. Number 4, San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo. Founded in 1932, the rodeo is the largest event in San Angelo with 65,000 attendees at the rodeo and an estimated 150,000 on the fairgrounds. It's one of the largest livestock shows in the U.S. The rodeo is dedicated to preserving the Western way of life and promoting agriculture education to the youth of Texas. Number 5, the historic murals. The purpose of the murals is to provide our current population and future generations with a clear, valid understanding of the history-rich legacy of our Western forefathers. The Railway Museum. In 1888, the Santa Fe Railway Company brought much-needed railway access to San Angelo. The San Angelo Museum now tells the history of the importance of rail to San Angelo. The Lady in Blue, the Humano Indians and pictographs at Paint Rock, number 7. The story of Lady in Blue dates back to the 1600s and continues to fascinate visitors and residents alike as we await the decision of the Vatican about making her a saint. Number 8, San Angelo State Park. Dave Macy's grave, born 1797, died 1847. It is a Texas cemetery designation out at San Angelo State Park, and they're working on creating a trail route to it. The official Texas State Longhorn herd, the bison herd. Number 9, Heritage Park, paying tribute to our rich ranching heritage on a daily basis. And number 10, and I think the most important, the citizens and the leadership. To attain these designations, our city must have support from our citizens and our leaders. In the words of Bob Bosbell, the executive editor of True West magazine, San Angelo is a great example of the living Old West, but it's more than just a place from the past. The local folks have done a great job in recent years of presenting the town to the world, not only in buildings, but in events. There's no question San Angelo is the top true Western town. I want to send out a special thanks to Bob Bluehart with Fort Concho for assisting us with our efforts this year in completing the application. And with that, I would like to present you with a plaque and, fresh off the presses, the magazine, from True West Magazine, recognizing the city of San Angelo as the number 1 true Western town of the year for 2020.
All right, we will now move into item B, which is consider items related to Z19-19, a rezoning from the single-family residential zoning district to the high-rise multifamily residential zoning district on 12.097 acres generally located at the southeast corner of Blum Street and East 40th Street. 1, consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to deny the applicant's request for a rezoning. And 2, first reading and public hearing on an ordinance approving Z19-19. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. As you mentioned, this does come to you as an appeal from the Planning Commission. So the two items, the first one is to either uphold the appeal or to overturn the appeal, or to overturn, and then you would vote, assuming you overturn, excuse me, then you would vote on the actual ordinance itself on first reading. You can see the location here, Armstrong, and this is 40th Street. This is a large vacant, undeveloped property, and a portion of it that you can see there in red is the area proposed for rezoning to the multifamily zoning district. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning, although, as I mentioned, the Planning Commission did recommend denial. It was a 6-1 vote by the Planning Commission. The future land use of the area is neighborhood. Just as a reminder, the neighborhood designation doesn't only mean single family, but it means housing and related uses. So single family, multifamily, even some small scale commercial would be considered compatible with that neighborhood designation. You can see on the zoning map, currently the entire area is zoned RS1 for single family development. Everything on the other side of Armstrong is actually ranch and estate, so for larger lot residential or agricultural ranch type uses. So this would be the first, in this general area, it would be the first non-single family zoning and development in the vicinity. This is the concept plan. This is the property in question. Here's 40th Street. Armstrong is just off. There's some single-family residential between the property and Armstrong, and then as part of the development, they would be building a street here, and the future plans are for potentially more single-family on the remainder of this property. We may come back to this if there are questions, but you can see on the current proposal, there's a mixture of 2- and 3-story buildings. These are the 3-story buildings, and the remainder would all be 2 stories. Some of the reasons that staff is recommending approval, as I mentioned, the comprehensive plan does designate this as neighborhood, which is compatible. Planning principles suggest that with good design, mixed-use neighborhoods are desirable, and so we often encourage a variety of housing types within areas. Given the proximity to Armstrong, it's traffic won't be significantly traveling through a neighborhood, but will come out on 40th, get to Armstrong, and then on the arterial system of the city. As I mentioned, it's part of a larger proposal that also includes some single-family development as well, and also some storage units to serve single-family neighborhoods in the area. There is the demonstrated need for affordable housing, as you all know from the recent housing study, and so this is one element of that. As it mentions, that affordable housing that we're in need of is not only single-family housing, but apartments, duplexes, other types of housing as well, is one way to help ensure that there is affordability in housing in the community. As I mentioned, it is near the major arterial roadway of Armstrong, and so it would provide for traffic, although there would be a little bit of traffic in the neighborhood in the sense of getting in and out on 40th Street. That traffic would very quickly come out to the arterial and be able to get out with minimal impact on the neighborhood as compared to if this was like smack dab in the middle of the neighborhood where you had to weave through a bunch of residential streets to get in and out. Drainage and infrastructure requirements, that's one of the concerns that was raised at the Planning Commission and by some of the neighbors. But as you all know, as part of any development plan, they have to submit engineered plans for drainage to ensure that drainage, as well as provided infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, all have to meet the city standards for serving the development that's being proposed. So we feel confident that that would be addressed as part of the development plan. And as we talk about traffic, yes, traffic will increase from an apartment complex in this area, but traffic will also increase. I mean, this is vacant land, and so in the sense that there is less traffic than there would be if this property is developed, that's true, but developing it as single-family homes would also increase traffic in the area. So unless we agree to leave this property vacant and never let it develop, there will be increased traffic when it does develop. And while apartments would increase traffic a little more than single-family homes, either one will have a significant increase on traffic. And when I say significant, I don't mean in the context of the whole neighborhood. It is an increase, but it's not an overwhelming increase. It's something that the roads in the area would definitely be able to handle. As we usually do, we send out the notifications to the surrounding property owners. We did receive 1 in favor, 22 in opposition. You can see the red stars there, all of the properties in opposition. In addition to the 22 within the 200 feet, also we received 23 objections from properties outside of the 200 feet. Of those that were notified, 76% of them objected, which represents 65% of the property within 200 feet. That's relevant in this case because, as you know, if more than 20% object, then it triggers a supermajority requirement requiring 6 of 7 council members to approve. In this case, that really doesn't matter because the fact that the Planning Commission denied it as well also triggers the supermajority. So this would have a supermajority either way, both based on the Planning Commission and the percentage of people within 200 feet objecting. That's kind of an overview of the case that's before you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have questions from council? Billy?
John, would you go back to the rendering, the concept plan? So what would be the entrance and egress points of the complex?
There'd be 2, one out here onto 40th Street and then this one over onto that new street that they would construct. Assuming the apartments were built first, then the ways out would be out up to 40th and then over to Armstrong. At some point, as I mentioned, as this area to the south develops, this street would continue. And so you could get to the south or out to, and of course, you know, these roads continue into the neighborhood. Although, as I mentioned, we suspect most of the traffic would go out to Armstrong, although some of the...
Go to 40th and then
to Armstrong.
40th and then to Armstrong. Although there are the schools up there, as you know, that so some of the traffic getting kids to and from school, for example, might go the other direction into
and what is that street on the west side there that you pointed?
This street is not a street today, but it would be constructed as part of this development.
So the street would be there, and there's no residents currently on that street?
No, because it doesn't exist. The street doesn't exist.
Yeah, you can
But sometimes they have residences, you know, even though there's no street. So I didn't know if there...
Yeah, and you can see here there are these homes around this street, and so that new street would be somewhere in this area behind those homes.
Okay, the line that you just threw, though, was through the red box. So the new street would be on the current property?
I might defer that to the developers to, off the top of my head, I don't remember if that street's going to run right behind those houses or if there's something between, you know, there may be between the road and those houses. I just don't recall, and they could answer that for sure. But as I mentioned, ultimately, that would be an extension of this Bloom or Blum Street, and it would come all the way down to 37th at some point. That wouldn't necessarily be immediate, but only as the rest of this property to the south develops.
Thank you.
Do I have further questions from council?
John, talk a little bit about the drainage and the engineering that's required before they come in, because I've got several calls, and one of the things was, the flood, the water, the drainage. I need you to go over that.
Sure. And if you have detailed questions, I might defer to engineering, but in general, what the development rules say is that when you do new development in the city, you can't increase drainage downstream on adjacent properties from what it is today. So they would have to figure out all the pavement and buildings and how much extra drainage that will create, and then they have to accommodate that so that it doesn't release more water downstream, and basically by either detention ponds or other things to meter the water out so that it flows out at about the same rate that it did before the development.
Tom, do you have further questions?
No, can I make a comment at this
You
point?
may make a comment.
This is in my district, and I've got numerous phone calls, personal. People have run me down. I won't say run me over, but have maybe thought about it, and have talked. And several of them have brought this issue up, and I've gone over it several times, and everybody else on this council has. It's been a piece of property that's had, trash, refrigerators, everything was on it, but it's still a piece of property that I know it's valuable, and there's tons of people here that it's their neighborhood, and it's what they've grown up with, and unfortunately, as cities grow and expand, we're all going to have to deal with growth somewhere in our time period, whether we like it or not. We're making decisions based off of a population, not an individual desire from one specific person or group, and the demand for housing is here. And it's in our backyard, whether we like it or not, or where it's going, and we all deal with that, even I personally, as what's going to be living to you next door and how it goes. For the first time in many years, we've got lots of growth in North San Angelo. We're building houses. If we don't grow and we don't continue to pursue that growth, we're going to wither up and dry away on the vine. I think it's very important that we take a look at what we're trying to accomplish as far as housing, who we're trying to accommodate with people, and the things that we're trying to move forward with. And I just want everybody to keep those things on our mind. Our heart, there's going to be lots of people speaking this morning about what's heavier on their heart, and I get that. I mean, we've all dealt with that personally. But I think as we look at this, as we're looking at a decision based upon a population of not only this year, next year, the next 20, 30 years, we're going to see things like this expand way beyond 2105. We'll be, 4 to 5, 6 miles out within the next 50 years. It's just what's going to happen, and this is one of those steps we're all going to have to work with. With that in mind, I'll make the motion to go with the appeal to continue with the development of this property and the rezoning.
And a second by Harry. With a motion for denying or to support the appeal and a second, we will now open it up for public comment. I remind everyone you have 3 minutes. You may only come up and speak at the podium one time. So with that, who would like to be first? Please state your name and obviously your district, but we assume we know which district, but say it anyway if you would for me, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Clay Hubbard. My wife and I live at 3721 Armstrong. We've lived there for 38 years. Our children were the 5th generation to live on that property. We have roughly 600 feet of boundary in the southeastern corner of the property at issue today. And I'm here today to state that my wife and I are profoundly against the rezoning of this property to build an apartment complex. I'm submitting to you today a petition with over 50 names of people that live in the immediate area, that live on Armstrong, 40th, 41st, 39th, 37th, Ada Streets, and they will be affected by this apartment complex. I have canvassed the entire circumference of this property, and I've spoke to a lot of people, and I have found no one, and I mean no one, that says, hey, this apartment complex in the middle of our neighborhood is a good idea. Nobody wants it. As a result, if this rezoning is approved and the project goes forward, it will be imposed. And the word imposed is an accurate word. It will be imposed in the middle of a neighborhood that does not want it. My goal this morning is not to be specific about flooding issues, traffic problems, security concerns, sewage and water utility issues. Those and other concerns will be brought up by my neighbors. My goal this morning is trying to get you to empathize from our point of view. I want you to think, no matter where you live, Pauline, The Bluffs, Green Acres, Santa Rita, wherever you live, in your own backyard, think of a 156-unit apartment complex just on the other side of your backyard fence. 400 people, 200 cars, and 3-story buildings looking down into your backyard. At the Planning Commission, of which voted this down 6-1, Mr. Stribling, the chairman of the commission, asked Sherry Bailey, how will the density of this apartment complex compare to the way it's zoned now at R1? She replied, it will be over double the density. That's over double the density of what it's zoned for now, which is houses. Ladies and gentlemen, the solution is simple this morning. Deny this appeal for an apartment complex and build houses, which it's zoned to do now. No one objects to building houses. You will make a neighborhood happy, and 68 houses equals a lot of tax revenue. After you've heard from all the opposition this morning, I hope that you can understand from our perspective of why we oppose this zone change. I'd like to thank you for volunteering your time to serve on the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Next, someone else like to come forward, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is James McWhorter, and my wife and I live at 3939 Armstrong, and we've owned this property since 1968. We strongly object to the proposed buildings, but we also agree with the comments that Mr. Hubbard has presented. One of our main concerns is the additional traffic. Since I happen to live on the corner of 40th and Armstrong, as it stands, from around 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning and 4 to 5 in the evening, the traffic is very heavy, and turning onto Armstrong is very difficult. I realize this is just a couple of times a day, but isn't that so in most cases? And we've already had several wrecks on our corner. And I don't know if y'all realize it, but the only through street excuse me, is 40th, and the next one down is 28th. So if they're exiting out on that new street, there's no place for them to go except the 40th. We have no desire to wake up in the morning and the first thing we see is 3-story buildings in the middle of our neighborhood. We realize that the apartments need to be built, but please build them somewhere that is more commercialized. Also, it was mentioned that a lot was being set aside for storage units, and isn't that a commercial endeavor? The Planning Commission suggested that the builders have a neighborhood meeting, and no such thing has happened. Just work continues on the proposed property. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next person, would you please come forward?
My name is Peggy McWhorter.
Would you talk into the microphone? You might need to pull it down a little bit so we can hear you.
I am Peggy McWhorter. My husband and I live at 3939 Armstrong Street in an RS1 neighborhood. We object strongly to the proposed zoning change, and we agree with the comments of Mr. Hubbard. We were told by the applicants, we have been told by the applicants that the RM2 units could increase our property values, which would increase our taxes, but it would also decrease our resale value. This is a concern to us. A member of the Planning Committee strongly suggested that the applicants meet with the neighborhood residents. No one contacted us. Excuse me, I'm kind of got some allergies. In your enthusiasm to increase the revenue, please give some thought and consideration to the existing neighborhood residents who will be impacted by the increased traffic, school overcrowding, and months of road and drainage construction. In closing, we cannot find any reason why it is thought that putting high-rise residential units in the middle of single-family units would be welcomed by the residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sherry Richardson. My husband and I reside at, I just bought the house, give me a moment. It's 821 East 41st Avenue, Street, I'm sorry. My husband and I totally agree with Mr. Hubbard and where he stands on and what he's presented before you. I just want to add one thing. 6 weeks ago, my husband and I have moved here from Denver, Colorado. 6 weeks ago, we bought a home in a rural area. We thought it's very quiet. We love being able to sit out in the backyard and we don't hear anything. We bought this home because of the location, and do I say, for us, it's country living. So really, if you would, please listen to the people that live in the community and how we feel.
Thank you very much. Next person. Go ahead and come on up and sit on this front row so that we can.
My name's Jennifer White. My husband and I live at 913 East 40th Street. We are both opposed to this apartment complex. Traffic is horrible in the morning. You have kids. There's going to be people flying down the road. There's going to be kids playing in the street, and they can't do that anymore. We're not opposed to single-family houses. We're just opposed to the apartment complex. Thank you.
Next person, please. Good morning.
My name's Tom Johns. I live on 3910th Ada Street. My backyard will back up directly to this property. I can wave at the people on the third floor. This is a bad idea. This idea has already been rejected by the Planning Commission, and I want to talk about why I think it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea even if I didn't have a dog in the fight. This property is bound on three sides right now. The only way you're going to go into the property or you're going to get out of the property is going to be 40th Street. People have already talked about traffic issues, but there's another issue that I'm very familiar with because I live there. If you stand at the entrance and the proposed entrance and exit to this complex, and look to your right, what you're going to see is a drainage canal. This drainage canal routes all the water north of 40th Street. I'm talking about all the way down to the Lakeview High School complex, 37th Street, 31st Street, all the way to 37th Street. All that water, when it rains, hits the asphalt, hits the driveways, hits the parking lot. It all comes down to 40th Street. It's just a natural slope. It's been there since day one. It wasn't engineered. It's just the way that the land falls. So when it rains and you have a hard, you cannot get down 40th Street. I can't tell you how many times I've looked down 40th Street, turned around and gone a different direction because it is flooded. You can try to engineer it, but you're not going to be able to engineer the natural slope of the land. The only way water gets into this drainage canal is through 40th Street. Now, if this proposed road is built, it'll provide some relief, but that road's not there right now. You put these people into this complex and you get an inch and a half of heavy rain. They're not going to be able to get out. They're not going to be able to get in. They're not going to be able to get to work. they're not going to be able to come home at night. And this is not something that might happen. This is something that will happen. I've seen it time after time because I live there. So I hope you'll consider this very strongly and not let this happen. The Planning Commission rejected it 6-1, and they did it for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Morning, Council.
Good morning.
My name is Marco Espinosa. I'm a retired Air Force member. I chose Goodfellow Air Force Base because I like the town, and I chose the area where I'm currently living at, 944 East 40th Street, based on the fact that it was a quiet neighborhood, kind of like the lady said back there, country living, if you will. We're not opposed to actually improving or building more homes. We're opposed to building high-rise buildings, if you will. The traffic itself...
High-rise meaning two-story?
Meaning 2- and 3-story...
There's two-story houses out there, right?
Well,
there
are there's only like two houses in our neighborhood that's two-story. Okay. But they don't look immediately into our neighborhood or into our backyards. Again, you know, quality of life. The reason I spent 21 and a half years in the military, and I looked to where I was going to retire after I completed my term, if you will. I chose San Angelo, and I chose the area where I live at right now because of the fact that I felt that that was a quiet neighborhood. My kids could walk to school. Right now, if you build a high-rise, it's going to increase the amount of people, if you will, the amount of traffic. There's a lot of kids that walk through there, they go to school. What is that going to happen? Is there going to be an accident? I mean, are the kids going to be safe? That's our concern as far as family, that the increase of people, if you will, or the increase of a 2- or 3-story high-rise is going to create more traffic, more dangers for our kids walking to school. And I can tell you a lot of kids walk to school because I see them going when I go to work. I currently work at Goodfellow Air Force Base. That street, 40th Street, gets flooded so bad, as the gentleman mentioned, that I have to actually go around. What's going to happen to that? That's going to increase the traffic going to school, which is the street going straight to Lakeview High School, if you will. The Golden Elementary School is just up the road from there. That's where the traffic comes from right now. We're not opposed to improving or moving forth with more housing. We're opposing the high-rise, or I keep calling it high-rise. For me, 3 stories high-rise, period. Okay? Because where we live at is all family housing. We're all a very close-knit community that right now I think we're all asking to please consider denying this. Single-family housing, we don't have no problem. I've talked to all my neighbors. Mr. Hubbard pointed out the fact that we've all gotten together. And I think we're all opposed to the apartment complex, not opposed to improving housing or adding more housing. Single-family housing, not 2- or 3-story buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next.
Good morning, guys. I just wanted to say my name is Nancy.
Perfect.
Nancy Sosetto. We live off of 40th Street, which is the everything is going to be built right behind our backyard, and we live like 2 houses down where the entrance is going to be, and it's 1021 East 40th what I live at, which is right in the middle of this building on 40th Street, and my concern is I don't know if you know how much water comes in through there, but my house and my neighbor's house right beside us, we get really flooded already, and I don't know how much construction is going to take for all this building because it gets up to 4 inches, and I know sometimes it rains like last 2 years I think it rained 3 days, 3 nights I think nonstop. And we get pretty flooded back there. My concern is I just bought this house. We've been moved here for 3 to 4, about to go 4 years. And the reason, like I said, we bought this place because it was more like country living. And we love the space and we love everything, that my neighbors, we know them all. And it's just that, I mean, would you consider, going back to your backyard and have these apartments built back there and people are staring at you? We're not going to have our privacy. That is taken away from us if this happens. And to our neighbors, too. Like, And, I just can't, think of going back in my backyard and not having that privacy anymore because this isn't right in my backyard. And the reason we bought this was because this building had its privacy. I mean, there's several people here that's the point that they liked. I mean, what are we going to do? Go find another house? I love this area. And this is my family home that's going to be taken away. And I just ask y'all to reconsider this because it's not only that, but my girls are learning how to drive. They're teenagers and, just with the, roads, of course, everywhere is going to be heavy, but I keep my girls off the loop. But with all this traffic that's going to start, I would, especially at 7:30 all the way to 8:30. And even when there's been many wrecks on the corner of 40th and Armstrong. And that's not even whenever it's not busy. I would consider y'all looking at that, maybe because, y'all going to even have to think about lights there because without just 40th Street, it doesn't, what do you say? It's not like, it's one of the main roads to get out. So, it's already getting busy at 7:30 and just rush hours, And it's just, you have to reconsider that too. And it's just, and I just, I'm with Hubbard and everything, and opposed of this. And I just ask you to just reconsider in this and the people that, that change are being, their lives are being changed because of this. And
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all guys.
Next. Good
My
morning.
name is Dennis Chowning, and I live on 3708
Would you do me a favor and move that microphone up a little bit more so you can
Okay.
talk into it?
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Dennis Chowning, and I live on 3708 Armstrong. And I could agree totally with Mr. Hubbard and all the other neighbors around that I want to voice my opinion to be totally against the apartments. The single housing is be fine.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Walter Patterson. I live at 950 East 40th Street.
You're going to need to move the microphone up. You're so tall. There you go.
There, is that better?
That's much better. Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, my wife and I bought the house in 97 because it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. Okay, and if you go just about anywhere in town and look to see where you've got these large apartment complexes, and just about every single one of them is on large 4-lane streets, of which obviously 40th Street is not. Okay, now I definitely want to be listed as opposed to an apartment complex, not just because of the vehicular traffic, but also the pedestrian traffic also. Okay, when I came down here this morning, I intentionally went down to Crockett Street, back up to 42nd Street, and I see all kinds of kids walking to school. They put a large apartment complex in here, you're going to have kiddos walking to and from the high school north of there. Okay, plus you're also going to have a bunch of people, kiddos walking to and from school down past Bowie Street down there. Okay, now there's no sidewalks out there anywhere, so all of these kiddos are having to walk on the streets or through people's yard, and I see this every single day. So, because of the vehicular traffic and the pedestrian traffic, I would definitely want to be listed as opposed to it.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good morning, Council. My name is Erica Carter, Carter Fentress Engineering. I'm the engineer for this project. I wanted to address a few of the issues, mainly drainage. Right here is the major drainage way that everyone is speaking about. And with this development, we will be adding either a detention pond or a series of detention ponds. We will not be able to increase drainage at all. The city won't allow it. It's a requirement. Another thing I want to maybe add is that if we did do all residential development, what's to stop people from putting in 2-story homes in all those residential developments? Still able to see. I understand what everybody is saying, but these guys are doing, this group of people that is developing this, they are taking into consideration all of these issues and trying their best to make everything work. But from an engineering standpoint, also with with the roads. There's only one, they keep saying there's only one road through. They're proposing to put another road through, right there, on their dime, putting that in for a second point to go through. So just want to make those things clear, and I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Erica, before you
Just
leave.
a minute, Erica, please. Tom has a question or comment.
Yes.
So we're talking about, and it's, several people brought this up. The addition of this, the road will be in place prior to the building and the occupants, correct?
The road will be in place right here. That is part of the development for this.
Is it on the front end of the construction or the tail end? Because we've had some people brought up concerns that if you have people in here and the road's not built, they won't be able to get out.
I think that we could work that out with, and I'll refer to developers also, but I think if that would help some things, I think we would be willing to do that.
Okay.
There should be flexibility with that, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. And we'll also be improving 37th. As it is right now, it's pretty, it kind of dead ends and it doesn't go all the way through. So we'll be also improving that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Morning, my name is Granger
Morning.
McDonald, the applicant on this property. We'd be more than glad to put the road in first. It's not an issue. Kind of wish the metal detectors had been working this morning. Kind of make me feel better, I guess, standing before an angry crowd. But I think there's a lot of information going on. First of all, I just think it's wrong to refer to this as high-rise. We're a two-story property. We have two buildings that are three-story that are inside our property. You can look at the site plan and see the amount of setback we have away from the property owners. We have much more of a setback than you would have if you had single-family houses, less than 10 feet from each other's property line.
And I would assume in single-family housing, you could have 4, 5, 6 people living in a single-family home.
There's no limit on how many can live in a single-family home. And we are limited to how many people live in an apartment unit. As for the traffic, I think that Mr. James adequately discussed that. I think Erica brought it up as well. We're going to get that traffic off the street. One lady said kids are playing in the street and they won't be able to. They shouldn't be in the street right now. That's not where kids should play. They should play in their playgrounds, which we have on our property, specifically for that. This is the exact same project that I brought to you on October 15th of this year, and you unanimously approved it. I took you at your word, Mayor. You said, hurry, were your last words to me. I've gone out and spent $75,000 on architecture and engineering, getting this project ready to go. That's my bad. I guess I should have realized that we were going to run into a roadblock on zoning. I never thought that. We spent that money in good faith based on the fact that this body has already approved the project. And we went out and did our job. I think that one of the things that was a big issue at the Planning Commission meeting was crime. And I want to tell you that is nothing but discrimination against people who live in apartments to say that they're crime-ridden. First of all, let me tell you that everybody who lives in one of our apartments has a criminal history background check and a credit check. And we do not take people who've ever been convicted of a violent crime, and we have a zero policy for anybody who has violent crimes or any sort of drug issues, and they will be evicted if anything occurs.
And I assume in single-family homing, there's no review of credit or crime activity in a single-family home.
And let me point out, and I'm going to take the gloves off here just a second. On 40th Street, right in the dead middle of this neighborhood, across the street from where we're building, there's a registered sex offender. These people can't keep sex offenders from moving into their neighborhood. I can keep them out of my apartment projects. You can look at any of the 41 properties that we own or manage in the state of Texas. There's not a sex offender or one. Right here locally, that's Bent Tree, Red Creek. This is at Red Creek, River Place. We also built and own and manage for the owners of the NOAA single-family homes out in the Brookshire area, Blackshire area, and I think we're very proud of how those have all worked for revitalizing the city. That same revitalization will take place here, and we will see improvements in what goes on. It's just unfair and it's discriminatory to say that people that live in apartments are somehow a lesser class They're just looking for workforce housing. Workforce housing is very, very important. Now, as I said, we're not doing anything to destroy the neighborhood. You can go by the properties that we have in this community, and I'm damn proud of them. I welcome you to go by and look at them anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wait a minute, Granger. I think Lucy would like to just make a comment or ask a question.
I just wanted to ask a question. How much will these, excuse me, how much will these apartments be going for as far as?
A one-bedroom apartment would be,
Right now, we're scheduled for the one bedrooms will be about $731. The two bedrooms will be about $825. The three bedrooms will be right at $1,000 a month.
our housing study indicates that there's the greatest need for one-bedroom apartments, $850 and less. And so it fits below what the housing study says is an important price for one bedroom. So this is a strong story in terms of rent.
I will tell you that in the apartments that we have already in the community, we're 100% occupied in one-bedroom apartments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you've spoken once, so that's all.
Good morning, Council. Bob Salas, Neighborhood and Family Services Director. I just want to remind Council that this project is part of our neighborhood revitalization plan. It fills a great need, and that's adding affordable housing stock in our neighborhoods. But more importantly, I think there was a 2017 study conducted, and they identified some positive impact of some of these kind of projects. For example, it helps increase neighborhood safety. It improves property values and decreases crime. We want to support these kind of projects throughout our neighborhoods, and I think this is one of them that will have a great impact for the north side of town. So we certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment?
Julia Sanchez. We just bought the property at 3825 Armstrong, maybe like a year and a half ago. We bought it because it was a calm area, not too much overcrowdedness. But we strongly agree with Mr. Hubbard as well. We're against it. And also wanted to talk about the crime. Yes, you can do the whole background checks and everything, but you can't guarantee that those people aren't going to choose to do something in the future. I mean, that's a person's choice. So you can't actually guarantee that the safety and all those other concerns is not going to be there.
You can't guarantee safety in single-family home either.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. Just because him saying that he can keep that out of that neighborhood, it's not true, because you can't guarantee what a person is going to do. So
thank you very
I just
much.
wanted to state my opinion.
Thank you so much. Hello.
Morning.
Thank you. You caught on. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. You know, he had mentioned throwing dollar sign out there. That's something that.
Oh, your name, please.
Charles
so sorry.
Melendez. I reside at 937 East 41st Street. I'm just catty corner from that property. And I know he had mentioned, he brought up dollars, about $75,000. You know, that's something that, you know, he should have came out and reviewed before he threw the money out there on this property to see how it should be developed. No, the building is a complex with variable, and it'll stick out like a proverbial sore thumb, disrupting the quiet, the privacy, and other single-family resident characteristics of the neighborhood, and negatively affect the property value of the houses in this area. A whole host of other potential problems may also emerge from this highly density housing, including traffic, public safety, and other quality of life issues. Planning a way that enhances instead of destroys the characteristics of this neighborhood and property values of adjacent homes. You know, they could build houses. You know, they mentioned two-story houses and yeah, being able to look at our backyard, but it'll up our property value. You know, they were talking about the flooding on this street. Well, it goes all the way up to 41st, all the way up to here is where it floods. And all this property right here comes up this way, and it even comes up 41st a little bit, but it does fill up the backyards over here in this area. So, I mean, it is a substantial amount of flooding that goes on back there. And, he brought up a lot of issues, and I should have brought a pen to take notes. But, this is my first council meeting.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. And I didn't know what to expect out of it. So I work all day. I'm out all day. The deal with this is, yeah, you can sit there and put, and then, my experience, I've been at the bottom of the barrel, and I've worked to where I'm at now. And it comes with hard work. So I never let anything get me down just because I'm struggling. Everybody struggled in life. And I've lived paycheck to paycheck, but providing for my family, I was always there for them. So I always did what I had to get to where I'm at today. Now, we're comfortable and we enjoy it. So we bought this property here. This is a quiet neighborhood. We've roughly lived in San Angelo for almost a little over 20 years is when we moved over here. And we moved out from, we lived in Marfa, Waco, and came over here. It's a beautiful town. We love it. We picked this area because it was very quiet, real close to the school. They mentioned the traffic. Well, I leave to work. I'm off at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I don't see the traffic unless I take a day off. So when I take a day off and I want to drive, well, you got right there by Lakeview, coming down on Blum Street, and up over here on this other street on this backside, that's where your heavy traffic is. This one especially up here on 42nd Street, because during the school hours, that's where all the traffic is. You have kids just walking up and down these areas right here like that. So, increasing the traffic and all that stuff is going to kind of put a damper in trying to get out and move around, unless they put traffic lights there. But, we're not going to go to that extent. But, we really enjoy this neighborhood. It's quiet. Right now, I can leave all my stuff in the backyard. I have 2 weenie dogs, so they're not killer dogs, so it's not going to keep a thief from breaking in. So I can leave my stuff out, laying out. I do a lot of work. I have stuff in my backyard yet. I just do little projects and stuff like that. So I can leave my grinders, my saws. I can leave everything outside in my backyard overnight.
You might not want to announce that at a public meeting.
It's to say, but I've lived over there a long
I
time.
hope you didn't give us your address.
I have a big dog inside the house. I let out every once in a while. But so that's how safe we feel about this neighborhood. Putting in this complex, it's going to complex. It's going to complex everything. So I'm just saying that we're going to have to go with privacy fences and stuff like that. And I hate to do that because it's just going to cost more. As far as 2-story houses, I'd say, they can look in the backyards, but we're trying to bring sexy back. But at the same time, it's going to increase the value of our property if they put houses around that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next comment. Good morning. Get the microphone close to your nose. There you go, to your mouth. Good. And then now, tell us your name, please.
I'm Beth Hoffman. My husband and I live at 962 East 40th Street. We're right on the S-curve. Our driveway is right on the S-curve. So with this apartment complex being built, we're not going to be able to get out of our driveway because of the traffic. So the traffic is going to be crazy. It's a blind corner as it is right now. And to build another street, there's already confusion, people coming around that S-curve on East 40th. And you're going to they want to add another street there. People are not even going to know where they want to go now. And to add that extra street, because that corner there's one stop sign for 3 roads going into it. Nobody knows when to stop. They run the stop sign constantly, so this is just going to add more confusion. Another thing is the gentleman that talked about his apartment complexes are, he doesn't let sex offenders in, or everybody has to go through a background check. Who's to say in 2 years that apartment complex sells to somebody else? Apartment complexes change ownership all the time. So he can't guarantee that it's always going to be the best of the best living in that apartment complex. We built a privacy fence around our backyard for the reason of privacy, and to put a 3-story building to where people are looking down to us. We're outside all the time. you know, and then the gentleman made a comment of kids shouldn't be playing in the streets. They should be in the park. We'll build a park in that little.
They are going to. They are. It's part of the development.
So, oh, I hadn't heard anything about a park, but
Part of, yeah.
just put a park there.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? If there's no further public
I'm Kristen Oliver. I'm the executive officer with the Home Builders Association, and I just want y'all to think long and hard before you go back on your decision. We say as a city that we are very pro-housing. We want housing coming in, and we're pro-development. But this is going to set a very scary precedent for any other developers coming in. I'm actually embarrassed that we're even here and we're having to even have this conversation. So I just want y'all to think long and hard about this, because if we want housing going and we want it pushing just to follow through with this housing study that we've got to have willing and able developers to come in. It's already hard enough to build in this town as it is. It's very, very expensive. Infrastructure is very expensive, and I know that's an issue that we're all having to deal with. But if you go back and if you can't even trust, approval, we're going to set a very scary precedent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further public comment?
My name is Melvin Johnston, and my mother passed away about 2-3 years ago at 3725 Armstrong. I was raised up out there, and my wife and I had planned to retire there. And we live in Denton right now. I got your granddaughter going to college. She's graduated. And I just, listening to everybody and the neighbors, a lot of them I've known forever and a lot of them I hadn't. It's a good thing to have the housing going there, but to have an apartment in there, to me, is ridiculous. I drove 300 miles yesterday to get here and just say that, put my 2 cents worth in. I'm for everybody that wants to buy. These contractors, these people that are buying these things and developing them, that's great for the city, great for everybody. I spent the last 15 years in the Metroplex, up to 600 miles a day, and what I did was help GTE at that time, now Verizon, and Frontier, all of them, Southwestern Bell, AT&T, put telephone cable into new developments in new subdivisions, and very few subdivisions have an apartment complex in the middle of them. They kind of try to keep them separate. And I would think that you're going to build a lot of houses, sell the houses, and then come in there and build the apartment complex. I would think probably that last. And say, guess what? So anyway, that's mine. I'm for Clay Hubbard. Everything Clay said, I back him. He's been a neighbor and a friend forever. And I just hope y'all consider that. Traffic's going to be a nightmare. And putting that little old water pond is nothing but a place to have mosquitoes grow real good, and also children try to swim in it. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you very much. No further public comment. We will come on up.
My name is Helen Campbell. I came here in 1989, retired military, and I feel that the comments made here by the constituents from the neighborhood, I truly agree with it, and I think we should reconsider the apartment complex portion of this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last call for public comment. With no further public comment, we'll take a vote to consider the appeal of the Planning Commissions to deny the applicant's request. So I'm going to start with Tommy Hebert.
I vote aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Billy? Aye. Lane?
Aye.
Lucy?
Aye.
Brenda? Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We will now move on to item C, public hearing on a proposed annexation by petition of...
Mayor, on
Sorry.
B, there's another section on there that's actually approving the ordinance. I don't know if John has a presentation for that part.
Okay.
It was all one
It
presentation.
was all in one. We read it as one.
So we need a second vote on,
I think so. The way the original motion was worded,
We'll take a second vote. All in favor, Tommy? Tom?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Billy? Lane? Lucy? Brenda? Aye. All right, move on to item C, public, Tom, how is your time today?
I'm good.
Because if we need to break and do executive session, now we can do that.
I think we're fine.
Okay, so we'll move on to item C, public hearing on proposed annexation by petition of the property owner for annexation of an 8.401 acre tract generally described as an area of land out of Casper Burbick Survey 152, and also being out of a 25.361 acre tract described and recorded in instrument number 201-66044, official public records of Tom Green County, Texas. Is this item ever going to go away?
Yeah, exactly.
We have talked about this 8 point whatever acres for months on end. Could we just get it done?
Hopefully, this is almost the end.
Unless he sells to somebody else. So.
You keep saying that every time it comes up, John.
All right, John,
Thank
you're
you.
on.
John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. I just have a couple of slides because you have seen this before. You've already actually approved this annexation on first reading, but it's coming back to you because of the sale of the property. It is the 8.4 acres. The front part of the property is already within the city limits, and so this just brings the back part of the property in as well. Here's the proposed development. This plat has already been approved by the Planning Commission, although one of the conditions was it can't continue and get city services until it's annexed in. This is the general location. Again, you can see the city limit line currently is something like that, and so it's bringing in that yellow piece there. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm sure we've had all the, Lane, thank you. Second. Thank you very much.
Second again.
And second again. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, item passes. On C, D is first reading and public hearing of an ordinance annexing into the city of San Angelo by petition of the property owner an 8.401 acre tract generally described as an area of land out of Casper Burbick Survey 177, abstract number 52, and also being out of a 25.361 acre tract described and recorded in instrument number 201-66044, official public records of Tom Green County, Texas, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents.
Yeah, C was actually just a public hearing. If you recall before, you have to have a public hearing and then the ordinance, which also has a public hearing. And so this is just the actual vote on the ordinance of annexation.
Move approval.
Got that done. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Item E, this is something I've been looking so forward to, so glad we have it today, and that is a resolution creating a new infill development incentive program and designating a funding source. John and Bob, it says, oh, both of you.
Yes.
Who's on first?
I'm up first, and Bob can answer any questions or add if necessary.
This is such a much-needed item, so get on with it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give kind of a quick overview of the incentive program. It would provide additional incentives for infill development. As you know, you approved a current program that allows $5,000 per home for new construction within designated infill areas. This program would come out of that same designated funding of $200,000, and it would be first come, first serve. So you could come for this program or that other program, but the funding would be from the same source. Agreements would be negotiated on each project individually. Some could be negotiated and approved by the city manager or his designee. Others have to come back to council. And so this is just a breakdown. This is the list of those that can be negotiated by the city manager. Waiver of building-related fees, reimbursement for tipping fees, roll-off containers, solid waste type things, waiver of sewer and water tap fees, waiver or reduction of zoning, subdivision, or related development fees. And so all of that could be done by the city manager. And just as a point of clarification, that any of those fees that would be waived or reduced would be paid for out of that set-aside funding, so that the permit fees would still be paid, but out of that funding rather than from the applicant.
What I like so much about this is that there's flexibility in terms of each project, what they might want to discuss.
And then here is a list of those incentives that would have to come back to City Council for approval. Any refund of sales taxes that's allowed up to 10 years. Property tax abatement can be done through one of those agreements up to the limits of the tax code, which is generally 10 years, although that can vary. Baseline performance standards that you can apply, such as energy efficiency standards. Participation in up to 50% of water and sewer extensions for development, and then economic development agreements per Chapter 380 of the Local Government Code, which is kind of a broad-based economic development ability to do through agreements.
On property tax abatement, is there a minimum, or I guess minimum tax value that would be discussed before the property tax abatement would be considered? For example, a single-family home versus maybe a commercial project, maybe whatever.
That would be up to you all. The way this is currently written, it's purely each case by case would be considered independently, and you all could decide to approve it or not approve it. There could be a minimum written into this so that it has to be a project over a certain size, but that's not currently in this draft.
And the sales tax, is that sales tax paid on product purchased to build with? Or what is a refund of sales tax?
I believe that would be like for retail, a new business or even an existing business that's subject to one of these agreements. If you bring in a new retail business, for example, they could get a sales tax rebate from the sales that they generate. So it's not necessarily just for building materials.
So this really infill incentive is not only residential, but you're also trying to address commercial development.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we need to have a separate program, one for residential versus one for commercial?
I think this one has been written it can apply to both. And again, it's flexible enough that it allows different incentives. So for example, obviously you couldn't have a sales tax incentive for a single family home because they don't generate any sales tax. But it's written broadly enough that you can pick and choose these different incentives based on each individual project. And it could be commercial or residential.
Mayor,
yes, Tommy.
I like the fact that it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Each individual can apply to their needs.
And then some of it too is administrative that Daniel can work
Right.
with. So I'd move we approve the resolution.
Okay. Second by Lane. Just one moment.
One more slide here is this does apply to that same target area as that other program you can see on the map here. It's a little hard to see, but the area in gray are the target neighborhoods. And so these incentives would be eligible within those boundaries. And I think that was it.
Mayor?
Yes, Billy, please.
John, would you go back to what would be brought before the city council, please? On point number 2, the tax abatement. If there are no guidelines on that, and we're doing it on a case-by-case basis, wouldn't that almost set a precedence that we would not be, or a standard that we would not be able to be consistent with? I mean, John, it seems like there would have to be some kind of guidelines on that. Was that discussed or considered at all?
I think our idea was to allow that flexibility to you all if you felt more comfortable having some parameters. That it's kind of a back and forth, if the more parameters you put, all of a sudden then you have a project that everybody likes, but they don't quite meet those parameters. So at least for this draft, we left it a little more open-ended. I think you're right.
These positions are going to change up here. So the way this council operates right now and the way we make decisions may not be the same come 2021 because 3 or 4 of us are up for, re-election or whatever next year. I just think there almost has to be some guidelines because I think there's going to be, we open ourselves up for a lot of criticism if we ever deny any tax abatement. If we approve some and then start to deny some, I think we open ourselves up for criticism. And also, the baseline performance standards such as energy efficiency? I didn't exactly get that. So can you say a little bit more about that?
As part of these agreements, you can say things like, okay, we're going to assist you by doing property tax abatements or helping you run a water line, but we'd like to see you use all energy efficient appliances or use low water design or things like that. This just allows you to put some conditions on the funding that you're providing to ensure that certain standards are met if that's something on a particular project that might make sense.
Daniel, you had a comment I think you wanted to make.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on this one item, Billy, I definitely understand your concern on that as well. I think some of the thought on that is as projects come up on a project-by-project basis, the city council actually can set the precedent and look at similar projects in the future. Those type of similar projects really would have to kind of go through. As other projects come along that are maybe a smaller project, again, that precedent can be set by the city council in how you handle that one and any similar projects to that come in the future. So we could do it one of two ways, either establish the guidelines or allow the city council, as these projects come up one by one, to establish exactly how we'll be dealing with similar type projects in the future and handle it in that manner. But again, I do understand where you're coming from. We do want to make sure that we're fair across the board, that we're not approving a project and then a similar project comes up and we shoot it down. We can't be doing that. We want to make sure that we maintain that level of approval and making sure that similar projects would get the same consideration.
For me, the biggest issue is on the property tax abatement, trying to establish a minimum amount that the project is valued at before there's even consideration, because property tax abatement for me is about big commercial projects. Mm-hmm. And it's frequent that many large commercial developments will ask for 380s, 381s to address that issue. So for me, it shouldn't be a residential thing on property tax abatement unless it's a large complex, like an apartment complex, big townhouse or something. But I don't think it should be on an individual residential home only. I think it would be good to set a minimum property tax level that would have to be achieved before it would be considered.
In terms of maybe rather than getting so specific, because things are going to, hopefully the property values are going to rise over time and so forth, maybe we start this, since it is a case-by-case basis. Billy, I think maybe too, you make a good point in my opinion. Councils will come, councils will go, but then that would then still allow each council the flexibility to, I'm just going to say, kind of tailor that to themselves, because something we establish another council may not agree with at all. So I would, again, for my one vote, I would like to leave this as open-ended right now, since we're just getting started. If we have to come back and tweak this, I think we can do that too.
Any further, Billy, would you like to ask any more questions or comments?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment based on what Tommy said, because I agree 100% that each council will have a personality and they will see things through their lens and, not through the current council. But what is the impact that has if you have no guidelines, if everything is open-ended? What's the impact on a citizen that today we give a tax abatement for up to 10 years and the next council said, that's really too generous, we aren't going to give any tax abatements, then, I just think we run the risk of not being able to adequately say what is fairest for all of our constituents throughout the, whatever area, these infill areas, that it could be seen as not being fair. And so that's my comment. I have no problem, because I fully support incentives for us to develop infill areas. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
I would like to also say, or ask and make sure it's very clear, that this $200,000 that has been set aside is the dollar amount that all of this has to fit into. So it's going to limit some of those that would qualify because of the limitation on the dollar that we're allowed to do unless we find an alternative source of money to help fund this. So the one criteria that's already in place is the fact we've limited the dollars, and over time, and perhaps with the next council, the issue would be that they would decide not to fund it anymore because the development that we hoped that this would make happen has happened, and it would no longer be needed. This is to incentivize infill area in areas that have not had the development that we want or need or would like to have happen. We could reach that maximum and say, you know what, things are moving along just fine. We don't need to do an infill development anymore. And Harry, you had a comment or a question.
You said a lot of it, Mayor, and I appreciate that. We're talking about infill to begin with, and I'd like to make sure that we keep the flexibility in where it is. Future councils may not have that opportunity for a lot of infill. Hopefully, we'll have the incentive for builders to start taking some of those properties and putting homes there. So from my perspective, I like the flexibility here, especially since it's got to come back to this particular group anyway for each individual item. So I like to leave it the way it is.
All right. Yes, please, Teresa.
First of all, a lot of the language that's in this particular program is statutory language. It's how the statute was written. It's what they encourage you to use whenever you're drafting these programs. If there's a concern over time as to what this program can become, we can always insert sunset language in it that says this program will expire so many years past the date of passage, which makes some sense because the whole point of these programs is to target a neighborhood, encourage development within that neighborhood, and then at some point, hopefully, that neighborhood would no longer meet the requirements to qualify for these kind of incentives under the statute anyway.
Right.
So
It's a resolution and not an ordinance, too.
right, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
not,
would-
that's correct.
That would be easier to work with as a resolution than it would be as if it were, an ordinance.
And the $200,000 is the sunset, if you will, in its own way, because once that number is hit, we would have to find another place in the budget to find the money if there was any, but it's kind of its own sunset in that sense.
Well, I do want to clarify the way that it was written is that $200,000 is just for the incentives that the city manager can approve. And if you want to utilize that whenever we bring something to you for approval, that's certainly within your ability to do so. But it was anticipated the $200,000 would be for those things that Daniel can already approve. And anything above that, you could still potentially negotiate.
All right, with that, any further questions or comments? If not, we have a motion and we have a second, so we'll open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Steve Hampton, District 6. So you've set this fund up with funds that will serve the community. I understood it was originally designed for housing, which $5,000 to 40 houses. That's not very many houses. And now you're wanting to add in abatements on taxes and 50% on water extensions, and you made it commercial. So I think you've gone too far. It's too rich, and it should be curved down or curved back. You're going to miss your goal because you're trying to do too much. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Kristen Oliver with the Home Builders Association. First of all, I want to applaud the city for this program. I think it's a phenomenal out-of-the-box way to think. I think it's a great idea. The only thing that we are recommending is that you expand the boundaries. Just because a property is not built on does not mean it's available. I've been working with a realtor who's a board member, and there's not one lot that's for sale in this area right now. So just because it's empty does not mean it's available. And so we are requesting that you expand the boundaries with that. I did not realize that you were extending to the commercial. I wouldn't recommend that the commercial boundaries be expanded, but at least for the single-family home lots, that maybe that boundary would be expanded. Because I know on Bowie and 48th Street, I believe, there's a series of 10 lots that it's been for sale forever because there's no water and sewer, and it's just too expensive to develop. In fact, Erica Carter just told me that she has 3 projects that are right outside of those boundaries that people are wanting to develop, but because of the cost of infrastructure, they just can't do it. I had a developer tell me last week that they developed 2,200 feet of just water, sewer, and gas. That doesn't, no land cost, no pavement, no streets, and it was over $800,000 for water, sewer, and gas. And that's it for 2,200 square feet. The cost of infrastructure here it's phenomenal. It's too much. But I mean, that's just one of the issues that we're having to deal with. And so we would just ask, that maybe that we look into possibly expanding these boundaries a little bit. Because right now, I mean, I know there's 5 builders have taken, 6 builders have taken advantage of this. And I have builders all the time. They're like, man, if I could find a lot to build on, I want to take advantage of this. But that's something I think that we need to look into as well, is that if there's not any lots to build on, you're not going to be spending the money. So
At this point, I don't think we want to talk about expanding the boundaries. I think we need to pass this. If we want to reconsider the boundaries going forward, we certainly can, but I don't want to hold this program up re-looking at the boundaries because it'll get very political. It'll take a lot of time. We could be 5 years down the road and not agree on the expanding. I'd rather get it going now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment? If none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. We will now go to item F. Consider a resolution amending the Tom Green County polling locations for the May 2020 election. Julia?
Yes, at our last meeting, we actually approved the resolution to call the election for May, and we also at that point adopted the polling locations. Since then, the County Elections Administrator's Office has come back to us twice with changes to the polling locations. So what we're wanting to do today is just adopt the locations by reference to the county's website rather than spell those out individually because they're subject to change in the future.
So look on website for the county. It'll have the polling locations. So do we need to read or do anything on this?
No, we just need to have a motion. And I do want to clarify, early voting stays the same. That will always be at the Ed Keys building, for the foreseeable future. But it's just the day of polling locations that are subject to change.
All right, so do I have a motion? Tommy make a motion, Harry seconded. And so is there any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will now move into the closed session. The City Council of the City of San Angelo reserves the right to adjourn into closed session at any time during the course of this meeting to discuss any of the matters listed below as authorized under the following sections of the Texas Government Code. A 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding Ford Ranch, West Texas Water Partnership, water rights, a potential settlement related to the Loss Review Committee. B, 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding part of the Miles Acre Lots Addition Blocks 21, 22, and 23, and part of Wells Addition of Miles Addition Block 5. We will see you when we get back here. Not on the news. Call this meeting back to order at 12:01 p.m. And with that, there are no announcements to announce from the closed session. So we'll go to item B, consideration of approving various board nominations. Airport Advisory Board, John Barrio, SMD 3, to first full term October 2021. Investment Oversight Committee, Zach Reyes for Investment Advisor Analyst, Tina Diersky, Finance Director, Michael Dane, City Manager's Designee, Gayla Thornton, non-voting independent auditor, and the Zoning Board of Adjustment and Appeals, which is David Nowen, SMD 5, to a first term ending January 2022. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. With that, any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Item C, announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Are there any? With none, we will take a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Moved by Tommy, second by Lane. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are done at 12:02 p.m.